back in today, NFL Waiver Wire Week 6. Week 5 is in the books. A lot of the ones hit. Now this week we have a lot of injuries to talk about. A lot of guys that aren't rostered in a lot of leagues. We're going to go deep dive on several of these players, and we'll talk about who's the best to be adding to your fantasy team to win you your league. So looking at this list of players, basically a generic list, we'll talk about some guys you shouldn't add in my opinion, and guys that should be rostered. So the first one on this list right here is Tank Bigsby. Now Tank Bigsby, we are going to do a deep dive on. He's got 16%. Only rostered in 16% of leagues. That's not too bad at all. Means he's most likely available. I know in my leagues he is available. Now looking at some of this stuff, a lot of these stats aren't updated with his Week 5 performance, which was probably his best performance. Yeah, let's take a look. Highest amount of snaps in any single game. It is still a bit of a backfield by committee between him and Travis Etienne. Doug Peterson reaffirmed Travis Etienne is the number one running back, but D'Ernest Johnson wasn't being used as much as Tank Bigsby, and Tank Bigsby looked like he had juice. 13 carries, 101 yards. Look at the efficiency, guys, in his last two games. 12.9 yards per carry, 7.8 yards per carry, and he got 2 touchdowns, his first 2 scores of the year. He also had his first ever reception in 2024, and it was a 28-yard one. He made it worthwhile. I mean, he had 125 yards with 2 touchdowns. This is someone that has to be rostered. Am I excited about rostering him? Honestly, I am excited because he's shown a lot of talent, but I'm still going to be a bit, hesitant. I wouldn't spend all the fab dollars just because ETN is quote-unquote the number one. You kind of would still need an injury, but he is that premium handcuff type guy, and he could also still have a floor of like 5-6 points per week if you're really in a jam with injuries. Tyrone Tracy, we're going to talk about next, rostered in 21% of leagues, and that's only because of the Singletary injury. Now, what did Tyrone Tracy do? Well, honestly, it looked like, who's that random guy they had? Gray? Whoever the hell Gray is for the Giants running backs, looked like he was the one until he fumbled on the goal line, which resulted in a touchdown. Get wrecked. I don't know why this guy wasn't playing the whole game, but Tracy, after that debacle from the quote-unquote RB1 that was Gray, he came in and he handled a lot of the rest of the work. 18 carries, 130 yards. He had 1 catch. So look, he had 100 plus rushing yards. And this is a guy where he transitioned from receiver to running back in his last year of college. So this guy's a receiver by trade. So I don't think we've seen the true, the true floor, the true ceiling and whatnot, because he barely was involved at all in the receiving game, and he was a receiver in college. So I think he can definitely get more involved there. Obviously, the downside here is Devin Singletary was almost able to play in this game that he was the starter in. And, Singletary is probably going to come back this week. Is it really somebody you're going to want to, do you want the Giants RB2 is what you got to ask yourself. Now, Singletary does have a groin injury, which will tend to linger, could come back, could last. So Tyrone Tracy is someone you should still be adding. Darnell Mooney is on this list. 59% of leagues already rostered. I've been starting in my flex spot for the last 2 or 3 weeks, so I don't really think he's someone we should talk about too much in depth. Obviously, he had like 30-plus points last week. He had like 15 targets. Somebody that you're not only going to want to add to your team, you're going to want to start him. Not going to go too in-depth. He should be on your roster already. Josh Downs, pretty similar. We covered him last week. Now, I do expect a bit of a regression potentially. Anthony Richardson's not going to be throwing the ball 50 times like Joe Flacco did, but Josh Downs looked really, really good the last couple of weeks. Roster in 38% of leagues. Go ahead and add him. I'm not too excited. I am kind of excited, year 2 wide receiver, but Anthony Richardson looks like trash. Ty Chandler, roster in 32% of leagues. Didn't look good at all, even in Aaron Jones' absence. The rumors are that Aaron Jones is probably going to be back in about 1 to 2 weeks, so it's not really a long-term severity type injury. But if Ty Chandler is available, I would go ahead and add him. He is going to be projected probably for like 10-plus points. And I'll factor in the fact that he'll be the quote-unquote RB1 for the Vikings. Vikings are a really good offense. Obviously, didn't look that good without Aaron Jones. But maybe kind of trade bait, especially for somebody who has an injured room of running backs. So Ty Chandler is someone you should go ahead and add. Braylon Allen, if he's still available in your league, you should go add him. Premium handcuff type back, but his role has kind of decreased, especially with the fact that the Jets are abandoning the run in some of these games. Roschon Johnson, it is a pretty solid ad right here, but DeAndre Swift has bounced back in a pretty big way in the last 2 weeks. Swift has a couple really nice performances. I think he had like 19 carries for 72 yards. and a touchdown, I believe, and he was also involved in the receiving game. But Roschon Johnson has become kind of that goal line back, and he punched in 2 touchdowns against the Panthers. So, I mean, if he still has that goal line role, maybe the touchdown volume is, a way where, similar to Tyrone Tracy, you could kind of have a premium handcuff and, not really a consideration for a flex, but like a last-second emergency type running back. So he should be rostered. Jaylen Tolbert is, in my opinion, one of the best waiver wire ads of the week. Tolbert, let's go a deep dive on him, guys. So, he's been looking really, really good, honestly, every single game. Now, the reason he should be at the top of your list, I don't know why he's this far down on this list right here, but he's looking really, really solid. Brandon Cooks on IR with a knee infection, meaning he's missing at least 4 games, and Tolbert is the new wide receiver 2. As the wide receiver 2, first off, 3 games this year with 60-plus snaps, highest snap count of the year versus Pittsburgh, and he converted into fantasy points. 10 targets, season high, 7 catches, season high, 87 yards, season high, and a touchdown, his second of the year. He's looking really, really good, and you can tell that Dak Prescott's looking for him. I don't really know what else to say right here except for he's the wide receiver 2 on the Cowboys. They have a high passing volume offense because their running backs are not looking too good either, although Rico Dowdle, I think, did do all right against Pittsburgh. But you can see that Jaylen Tolbert should be a guy definitely that's rostered on your team, increasing in snaps, wide receiver 2, better opportunity, and he'll be the wide receiver 2 for a couple weeks here in the future. Jones, Carr, not exciting. Zach Ertz is somebody that is actually kind of exciting here. Watson, not too exciting. If Watson's, the injury scares me, but once he comes back, he should be seeing a lot of, good amount of volume in that pass offense with the Packers. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. Not really liking any of these other type of names down here on this list. Jalen Wright could be a good one. Obviously, we have an injury to Devon Achane. I think the rumor was that it's a concussion, which he's not going to miss too much time there. You would think so. I don't know what's up with Miami. Michael Wilson, rostered in 13% of your leagues. He's on my roster right now. He's kind of taking a broom, it feels like, right? He has been pretty solid the last couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and we'll run him up. Let's type in Michael Wilson here. I think he had about 12 points, but, he kind of had, it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict what type of a game you're going to get from him with Marvin Harrison kind of being that target hound. So looking at his last couple of games, right? 9 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets. That's not terrible. He's playing most of the snaps. He's like an every snap type player. Wide receiver 2 on a solid offense, but they do have Trey McBride. If we take a look at his receiving yards, 65 receiving yards, 38 receiving yards, and then 78 receiving yards most recently. He's averaging about, 10 points per game. He did have 2 decent weeks. Could be flex consideration, right? Do I expect him to ever have like true wide receiver 2 type, viability? I don't think so, and that's kind of what hurts here. He is somebody where if your bench doesn't have depth, you can go ahead and add him to your roster. I think that's all I wanted to cover. Justice Hill has been a solid receiving back. Maybe is Jonathan Taylor going to miss another week? You could go ahead and add Trey Sermon. He looked good. Also, Blake Corum. Blake Corum seems to have jumped Ronnie Rivers as RB2 on the Rams roster. So Blake Corum is a premium handcuff back for a guy in Kyron Williams who's looked really, really good, but he hasn't ever played a full season. So Blake Corum, you could go ahead and add him back to your team. Also, if people go ahead and drop Trey Tucker and Devontae Adams doesn't come back this week, Trey Tucker could be solid. Jordan Whittington looks like he's the wide receiver 1 on the Rams. You can probably go ahead and drop Demarcus Robinson and add him. And really, those are all the names I wanted to talk about this week for the waiver wire video. Peace out. Thanks for watching.